What is up, fam? Thank you so much for joining us this evening. I have a very special guest on So Real Sports Talk today. Once again, my name is your host, So Real Sunil, also known as Sunil, the real deal, Holyfield. But to the side of me, I have a long lost brother. I haven't seen him in a while. The whole season it went pretty much since we've been talking. First time, no, he's been on the show a few times, but first time in a while. My man Chuy from All 49ers aside. Chuy, how's everything going there in Texas, my man?
What's up, Sunil, man? I appreciate you having me on. It's a pleasure. You forgot to leave out So Real Sunil, aka the GOAT. You could throw that one in there too.
For
But yeah,
sure, man.
man, I appreciate you getting me on. It's been a while. We need to make this a more regular thing, man.
We absolutely will, man. And we got the whole off season to talk a lot about 49ers and whatnot. And we'd love to have you on. So we'll definitely make sure that happens. But let's get into it, man. It's interesting that this offseason has already come upon us, yet a lot of the same conversations we were having at the beginning of last season are still going on at the beginning of this season. But one is, obviously talking about who the starter of this season is going to be. It's looking more and more day by day that the Jimmy Garoppolo experiment with the 49ers is going to end this offseason. A lot of talk about now the talk isn't about whether or not the 49ers are going to trade him, but what exactly they're going to ask for in a trade. So it's kind of a foregone conclusion that they are going to trade him. However, the Jimmy
This is
G
breaking our heart. This is breaking our heart, Sunil. No
some of
more
ours,
Jimmy. No
some
more
more
Jimmy
than
G. Right? No more Jimmy G.
some more than others, right? But let's go with I kind of wanted to talk about the whole experiment overall, and we could do this, with this year specifically, or the whole, and then we could go into more of like the whole 4.5 years of Jimmy Garoppolo being the quarterback for the 49ers. So if just based off of your estimation, and let's talk about this year specifically, and then move it into a broader sense, did the Jimmy Garoppolo experiment work with the 49ers?
So I know, everybody out there, a lot of people in this community have become Trey stands since the end of the season. They've actually been Trey stands all season long, man, but they're starting to show themselves a little bit more. But I'm going to say, contrary to what a lot of people were saying throughout the season, it was a success. How can you say it wasn't a success this season when we were on the doorstep to going to another Super Bowl? We had a lead in the fourth quarter of the NFC Championship game. Jimmy Garoppolo played only missed 2 games all season long, and he played every single playoff game for us, so for the 49ers. So he had them on the doorstep to another Super Bowl appearance. You have to say that that's a success. I mean, sure, his numbers aren't great. Sure, he's limited as a passer. He's limited athletically, so he doesn't have all the talent in the world. But regardless of all of that, he gets results. He always got results when he was healthy playing, and he did it again this season. So, I know everybody's upset we didn't go to the Super Bowl. We probably would have won the Super Bowl had we been in that game. But he was right there on the doorstep. There's 28 other teams that wish they were playing in their conference championship game. There were only 4 that played in their conference championship game. So you have to say he was had the 49ers as a top 4 team in the NFL this season. Has to be a success.
Yeah, and I mean, and just for everybody that might not have followed you this last offseason, but you were somebody who thought that Jimmy Garoppolo should start week 1, regardless of, Trey being there and his readiness or not. And, I give you kudos for that because I'm with you as far as the success. Now, I mean, if you look at John Lynch and Kyle Shanahan's stance as far as this, now, obviously this is argued because there was, that reporter that stated that the 49ers may have actually wanted to start Trey Lance this whole season, but it was an injury in the during preseason that caused them not to start. And even, for that last game in week 18, there was, maybe he was going to start then as well. But if you just look at Shanahan and Lynch, if they were like, okay, what would be the ideal thing to have this situation, this season, when you have a returning player coming off of injury, and Jimmy Garoppolo, veteran quarterback who has taken your team to a Super Bowl, and an up-and-coming young star that you've traded basically, your future first rounds for the next couple of years to be able to bring into your organization? What would be ideal? You would say Jimmy Garoppolo stay healthy for a majority of the season, the team be able to make the playoffs, have a deep playoff run, and in the meantime, both develop Trey to be much better than he was at the beginning of the season, and then also increase the draft stock of Jimmy Garoppolo so that you could get back maybe some of those assets that you let go of to get Trey in the first place. So every single one of those things that I just listed as what would be ideal if this was the Shanahan-Lynch plan from day one happened.
So I'm going to just to quickly interject there. I would say 90% of that happened. I don't think Jimmy G's trade value was really too impacted from this season. Just down the stretch, maybe in the latter part of the season where he went on the 3 to 4 game run where he was actually playing pretty well. I think the best that we had ever seen him play in his career. I think it was after the Chicago Bears game. He went on 3 or 4 games right there where he played pretty well until he got to the Tennessee Titans game. So I think that kind of hurt his stock, especially going into the playoffs when he was injured. That hurt his trade value. But I think from the rest of the standpoint, everything that you mentioned came to fruition. I think Trey got to sit and learn. He's going to be that much more confident in the offense and the verbiage. He's going to just be able to go and play. The 49ers made a deep playoff run. We mentioned that. They were on the doorstep of going to another Super Bowl. And, what else can you say, really? I mean, all worked out. And
I have to disagree with you. I think that Jimmy Garoppolo's trade value did increase because he showed that he could play a whole full season healthy as a starter. If he came off, he was injured this season, if he didn't play this season, there would always be that bug that, okay, he's not a quarterback that could stay healthy. He showed he could stay healthy. He showed he could win games. He made a deep playoff run. And not only his play, Chuy, also what's happened with the rest of the league as far as quarterbacks. The draft class is showing to be having no really bona fide starters in the draft. Some big starters, Ben Roethlisberger, Tom Brady, have retired. Some other teams
for now
for now. Some other teams may not have solutions at quarterback that they thought they had last offseason. So I would disagree with you. I think that Jimmy Garoppolo's draft stock is much higher this offseason than if they would have traded last offseason, coming off of an injury, not knowing what his play style is like.
You make a good point. I mean, I can't argue that it didn't increase. I kind of, just from my standpoint, I kind of have him exactly where I had him before this season. We kind of talk about what that is here in a second. But from the biggest thing that I see that happened is, well, what we're going to see happen, I think, this offseason is all of this quarterback speculation about quarterbacks moving teams, going different places. I think that that's really going to boost up Jimmy Garoppolo's value based on the factors that you said, because I don't see a lot of these quarterbacks changing addresses, not as much as people think. There's just, as you mentioned, there's not other players to be had to replace these star quarterbacks that we hear will potentially be on the move. So I think once the league year starts and once we get through actual trades that are going to happen, it's going to be a lot less eventful than people I think are anticipating. So I think that's going to really help drum up Jimmy Garoppolo's value, along with what you had mentioned, his play, him making it through the whole season, him being a team leader. He never lost professionalism during the season. His teammates never lost trust in him. That to me says a lot, like just the type of leader he was in the locker room. So to me that, I think you're kind of swaying me, Sunil. I think it kind of might have boosted him up a little bit, but I think the market is really ultimately what's going to boost up his value.
Yeah, and I mean, I do believe that the market plays and the draft is playing a big role in that. But if the team didn't succeed this season, or he got injured again with another season-ending injury, we're not talking about there even being a market for Jimmy at this point. You're talking about they're just cutting him and he's signing with some team in free agency. The fact that all of those things happened this year, they had a deep playoff run. He won multiple playoff games, or at least the quarterback win. The team won multiple playoff games, and he was able to stay relatively healthy this whole season. To me, there's the fact that we're even talking about there is a market shows that it raised. And
I agree with you that the health factor is the biggest thing with him. Is he made it through the season? He barely made it, but he made it.
Right. And E Kim says, thanks for joining in, E, and always being somebody in the comment section. It is a costly proposition to trade Jimmy for the other team. Got to get another quarterback when Jimmy gets injured early again. Not that I want him to get hurt. He also stated, I see no small organization trading for Jimmy. No reason for them to trade an asset for Jimmy when they can wait for 49ers to cut him. What do you think about that, Chuy?
There's an old saying that you have to strike when the iron's hot, and a lot of these teams are not patient, so they're not going to sit there and wait. Because, realistically, the 49ers, if they don't get what they're asking for him, they did leave the door open that he might be welcome back to the 49ers next season. Now, it's not going to happen. That's never going to happen. Somebody's going to trade for him, and the 49ers don't really want him, so it's not going to happen. But they left that door open, and once they cut him, a team is going to have to compete with 6 or 7 other teams looking for a quarterback when they can just secure the asset, guarantee that they get them by actually trading and giving away, whatever we think that trade package is going to be for them.
Right. And Ekim, he says, I see no smart organization trading for Jimmy. I don't know if the teams that we are looking, I would say Pittsburgh's been strongly tied to Jimmy Garoppolo. They're obviously a smart organization. They've had a lot of success in their organization. I think that specific teams that are built similar to how the 49ers are built, meaning rely on a very strong defense, have a strong running game, and targets around the quarterback that can make the quarterback look better. I think that those type of teams look at Jimmy and see somebody who has led a veteran team to deep playoff runs, has been able to be great on the microphone and be a leader of a team. I think that those are intangibles that a smart team is looking for in a quarterback. And when it comes to a quarterback, I don't think anybody will let their guy go into free agency. They're either going to trade for him or re-sign him so that he never goes into the market, because you never know what can happen when, an asset hits the free agent market.
Right. So any team that trades for Jimmy is going to extend him. They're not going to pay him $27 million next season, whatever that number is. So a team that's going to trade for Jimmy wants Jimmy. And that's the thing that 49er fans, because they haven't wanted Jimmy for like 3 years, they assume nobody wants Jimmy. A team that's actually going to sign Jimmy as a free agent or trade for Jimmy Garoppolo actually wants him. So that's something that we need to wrap our heads around. So they're not going to mind throwing out a draft pick for him so they can secure him and then extend his contract for 2 or 3 more seasons at a more affordable rate that they can afford. So I agree with you there. Now, one of the things that I think is Jimmy's biggest value is, as you had mentioned, the leadership. We had at the end of the season, Trent Williams even came out and said one of the reasons he came to San Francisco was because of Jimmy Garoppolo, and that he hadn't changed his opinion of Jimmy Garoppolo. Jimmy Garoppolo had proven everything to be correct, and he thinks that, he had his full support for Jimmy Garoppolo during the playoff run. So when you hear things like that from teammates of him, I think that's what other organizations are going to value and covet, and that's why I think the market for Jimmy will actually be pretty decent.
I agree. Now, let's extend it to the overall, 4.5 years that Jimmy Garoppolo has been the quarterback for the 49ers. Would you look at that? Would you look at his tenure with the 49ers as a success, or, okay? What kind of grade would you give it, I guess, on an A, B, C, D, E, F grade scale?
So this is a twofold question.
Okay.
You got to look at it from 2 aspects. what did the 49ers, what assets did they give up to acquire Jimmy Garoppolo? So we all know they gave up one asset. It was a second-round draft pick to actually bring Jimmy Garoppolo to San Francisco. Well, let's look at some of the 49ers second-round picks of recent, memory that we could think of. This season, Aaron Banks. I don't even think he played a snap. If he did, he played like single-digit number of snaps this season. So is Jimmy Garoppolo a better player than Aaron Banks? I would say it's a no-brainer that he is. Do we think he's going to be a long-term, probably more effective and impactful player for the 49ers than Aaron Banks probably is? I would say yes. Another one that we can look at, Deebo Samuel. Deebo Samuel was a second-round pick. Obviously, Jimmy Garoppolo isn't to Deebo Samuel's level as an impact player or a talented player. But I think Deebo Samuel, if people would have known what Deebo Samuel was going to be, he would have been a top 10 draft pick, not a second-round draft pick. But another receiver in the Shanahan era that we drafted in the second round, can you name him?
Pettis, right?
Dante Pettis, right? And where's that guy now? He's on the New York Giants practice squad, right? So, is Jimmy Garoppolo better than Dante Pettis? Has he been a bigger impact to the 49ers than Dante Pettis? I'd say absolutely yes. So to me, when you look at it from that standpoint, the experiment was a success because Jimmy Garoppolo was the starting quarterback for 5 seasons. He only played 2 full seasons, and he made deep playoff runs, 2 NFC championship games, 1 Super Bowl appearance in those 2 full seasons that he played. So I would say, again, you'd have to call it a success, right?
Yeah, I mean, if you look at it, obviously the win-loss record is really good. I think he won close to 70% of all the games that he started in. He's taken the team to 2 NFC championship games in that 4.5 years. And every single year that he's been healthy, the team has been a competitive team, including, the 5 games at the end of the 2017-2018 season when he was, brought in and got to play. That's where they, went in and, had that win streak while he was head of the team as the quarterback. So, yeah, I look at it as a success. I think the way you put it, as far as, they only gave up a second-round pick and seeing what they had done with previous second-round picks, absolutely. To have, even if if all those second-round picks were Deebo, still there's nobody impacting the team as much as a quarterback impacts the team, even though, Deebo is the heart and soul of this offense this season. You couldn't say the same thing last season or even the 2019 season. But Jimmy Garoppolo seems to be, I guess, the winning piece when it comes to at least this 49ers team. When, he's not the starting quarterback, they're not winning at a very high clip. When he is the starting quarterback, they are. Now, obviously, the other types of quarterbacks that were in weren't necessarily starting caliber quarterbacks. That's not what I'm trying to say, that Jimmy was the best quarterback that we could have gotten. I'm just saying, based off of what we had, what we've had in that same 4.5 years on the roster, it seems like the team was winning more with Jimmy Garoppolo than they were with any other options on the team. So with that being said, you got to say it's a success. Kyle Shanahan and John Lynch have to consider it a success. They were able to get extensions off of it. I'm sure they're not anywhere close to the hot seat this season because of, how far they went as Jimmy Garoppolo as a quarterback. So overall, I would agree with you that the whole experiment has been a success. And if they could get back a second round this season to trade in a trade or even multiple picks, you got to look at it and say, hey, maybe it was even more of a come up because you got more assets out of it than you even had to give up to get the quarterback, right?
Yeah. So we have a comment here from James here in the comment section, and I think he's pointing to the win-loss record, but the availability is what hurt him. I would honestly say, injuries happen in the game. That's a part of the NFL. I would say the biggest thing that really set Jimmy Garoppolo back and really turned the fan base on him was not the injuries, not the winning. It's the contract that we gave him. I think that was ultimately what went wrong in the Jimmy Garoppolo experiment. Is the 49ers kind of went gung-ho with him after he won those 5 straight starts at the end of the season. And the $100 million contract that they gave him was always an overpay for Jimmy Garoppolo. Now I understand he was only supposed to play like the first 2 seasons and get his bonuses when the cap number was not a big hit, and then they were supposed to restructure the deal. The problem was he got injured. They didn't want to commit to him long term, so they never restructured. So then he really became this albatross of a contract, and they just overpaid him the last 2 seasons that he's been here in San Francisco. So to me, that was, if there was a hiccup in the experiment, it was that. But I blame that on the 49ers front office for giving him that contract. I wouldn't necessarily blame that on Jimmy Garoppolo. Because if somebody came to me and said, hey, we're going to pay you $100 million to stream on YouTube, I don't care if my content is garbage, Sunil. I'm going to take the $100 million
Right.
and I'm going to stream on YouTube. You know what I mean?
For sure. Yeah, and I mean, even with that contract, like I said, the amount of success that the team has got, especially compared, I mean, the last part of James Coombs, by the way, thanks for coming on, my man, and love all the comments you put on the videos. We definitely appreciate you checking out all our content, James. Please don't mention 2015, 2016. A lot of people forget what this team was like before Jimmy Garoppolo got there. The type of quarterbacks we had, what the team was doing as far as win-loss and competitiveness. Jimmy Garoppolo, whether it be because of his play, his intangibles, his tangibles, whatever he brought to the team helped change the trajectory of this team, where now they're not looked at as a laughingstock in the division. They are part of the cream of the division, cream of the conference, and always a team that is looked at as a Super Bowl challenger. And whether or not you want to, give credit to Jimmy, to me, I do, because he's been a part of that for all of that. So in my eyes,
that's something that you bring up that I wasn't even thinking about, is he completely changed the trajectory of the entire franchise. I mean, when he came aboard and he won those last 5 starts the season that we traded for him, the 49ers were a laughingstock before Kyle Shanahan took over. And Kyle Shanahan was, 1-10 before he took over? Or
yeah, something
1-10? So, I mean, he completely changed the trajectory for this franchise. In the last 5 seasons, they're considered Super Bowl contenders every season because of what Jimmy Garoppolo did. So,
yep. So you gotta consider it a success.
So real quick, because I know we need to move on to the next topic. But last thing, what do you think we're going to get for him? Draft pick wise, what do you think?
I think it's going to be similar to the Carson Wentz deal last season. It's going to be like a 3rd round and a conditional 2nd that could turn into a 1st if he plays a certain amount of games.
That's exactly what I was thinking. Exactly.
Yeah, and if that ends up being the case, then at minimum you get an extra 3rd round out of what you got for Jimmy, because you got a 2nd for him. At most, you can get another 1st plus a 3rd round. So to me, like we said, I think that it's been a success all the way around with bringing Jimmy Garoppolo in for all the reasons we listed him more. But we got to move on, my man. And since we're talking about the 49ers past, let's now talk about the 49ers future. So I didn't think there was going to be a lot of controversy, especially since, everything I thought has gone as planned. I thought this was going to be pretty much, a very smooth transition into the Trey Lance era, Trey area, to say the least. However, that hasn't been the case, Chuy. Joe Montana has come out and said, you should keep Jimmy Garoppolo. Trey is not ready. Players on the team are stating Trey is not ready. Steve Young, who seemed to be a proponent for starting Trey all last season, it seemed like at least, stated that he believes maybe Trey isn't ready. Booger McFarland just went on ESPN today and said he is terrified. Chuy, he is terrified about Trey being the starter for the 49ers. So
you forgot Colin Cowherd too. Colin Cowherd said that he's hearing from sources that Trey might be a disaster, that there's a lot of people in the front office for the 49ers that are concerned. That has to be coming probably from like John Lynch's team, because he's the one that has the close relationship with Colin Cowherd. So there's just a lot out there that's kind of, it's a little bit weird, right? Because we didn't think we were going to be having these kinds of conversations.
Yeah, but it's not all bad. There are other reporters that are stating, obviously Jay Glazer is always very high on Trey, saying that, the team loves him. They're saying that they're seeing things out of him that are just wowing people during practice. I know that practice video has come out and you saw some pretty impressive plays that he was able to do. And not to mention, just last season as well, Chuy, his first game against Arizona was very questionable play calling. They seemed to just use him as a running back. It wasn't able to use him for his full, I guess, game playbook or whatever. But then against the Houston game, when he started against Houston in a must win for the 49ers, I thought he played relatively well. I thought he played extremely well, actually. Threw for nearly 250 yards passing, over 30 yards rushing, 2 touchdowns and an interception. So you saw some growth. But let's talk about just overall this season. I think both of us believe that he is going to be the week 1 starter. So what does Trey Lance have to do to live up to all the expectations of being, the first round draft pick, of being somebody that was traded away multiple first round picks to get, and also coming off of what Jimmy Garoppolo was able to do with this same team, being, a drive away from a Super Bowl appearance?
So what is funny about this topic is we're all forgetting. I mean, we've heard so many people complaining all season long. It's just been this big drama show the entire season. We all forgot when Trey Lance was drafted, everybody was so happy for him. Everybody said he's going to the best situation. He has the best team around him. He has the best play caller around him. Every quarterback wanted to go to San Francisco because of the
Oh, Chewy, you still with us? I think Chewy may have froze up, but we'll see if he comes back. But while we're waiting, let's see. We got Dick Tracy. Thank you for joining into the show, my man. Why is everyone tripping about the last practice video? Yeah, I know. Obviously it was practice, and obviously it most likely was the better plays of the game. Or of his practice session. You only got to see, stuff that end up making it pretty well and whatnot. For me, the things that I got excited about was just the arm strength and just his ability to put the ball where he wanted to put it, even though his feet weren't necessarily in the right placement, or it was against the momentum and things of that nature. So it's just like, when you look at some of the better quarterbacks in the league, the Patrick Mahomes, the Joe Burrows, the Allens, and Justin Herbert, we didn't get to have, you see those type of quarterbacks that are able to do things just off script, that are just like those wow moments that when a play breaks down, they're still able to go out there and make a play. And haven't had a quarterback quite like that in some time with the 49ers. So just to see that a quarterback has that type of ability just is exciting. So for me, Dick, I think that was what got me excited about those plays. I think they are a little bit overhyped, but that is because there's no football being played right now. So yeah, that's what got me excited, at least. Looks like Chewy, we back?
Yeah, we're back, man. I guess we had
Cool.
some internet hiccup there.
Yeah,
so
no problem. You kind
I
of
got to
cut
get
out
on that
pretty
5G up here, man.
Yeah, and you kind of cut out pretty early into you going on. So I think you left off kind of talking about how you're setting up how everybody thought Trey Lance was coming into a really good situation, and then he froze.
Right. So we forgot about that, right? Everybody's forgetting about that because of everything that went on during the season. I mean, this was the destination that a rookie quarterback wanted to go to because it was the best situation. We had the best coaching, we had the best roster. A team picking that high in the draft usually doesn't have these things in place. We had all of that. So I think Trey is actually going to surprise people, not because he's going to blow these, he's going to blow it out of the water stat wise. he's going to field a very competitive team, and the team's going to win with Trey at quarterback. So I think all Trey needs to do is he needs to go in, he needs to try to relax and play within himself, develop as he's playing. He is still, he hasn't played in 2 years, really. He missed 2 full seasons of football pretty much. So I think he has some things that he needs to clean up as well. I mean, I was at the Houston game, and I saw that first half. If you didn't watch the all 22 of that game, you should go back and watch it. He was struggling in the first half. There was a lot of people that were running wide open that he was missing. It kind of just seemed like the game was moving a little too fast for him. But as the second half rolled around, he settled in. And I think what was super important was Kyle trusted him and kept with the game plan. He let him keep throwing the ball. And we were able to see tremendous growth in that one start, which I think show that was the best thing we've seen from him all season, including preseason, all the training camp reports, everything was just the growth in that one start that he had against the Houston Texans. So to me, he doesn't really have to do that much. He needs to come in, hand the ball off like Jimmy Garoppolo did, make a few throws, convert some third downs. And really, he needs to win 9 to 10 games next season as the 49ers quarterback, which I think he can easily do just because of the supporting cast.
Yeah, and I mean, I agree with you. I think a lot of his success is going to be based off of, or his success is going to be, whether or not he's successful or not, is going to be around how well the team does overall, which obviously we've seen, in a quarterback like Jimmy Garoppolo that a lot of people say may be limited. Still, within this system, like you said, with the cast around him, doesn't need to be asked to do too much to still be a competitive team. But I think that just being competitive and just being a team that could go out there and do exactly the same as Jimmy won't necessarily live up to expectations, Chuy. Just because I think that when you trade what you traded, and just how much the fan base is like looking for a superstar to be a quarterback for the 49ers again, I think there's some that have all of these extremely high expectations. And that's hold on, let me finish before you cut me off. And that's why you're starting to see a lot of these reports come out from the guys like Booger, come out from guys like you said, Colin Cowherd, Joe Montana, Steve Young, is because this isn't a third round quarterback that they're saying they're going to start. This is somebody that they traded, 2 future first round draft picks plus taking a draft pick. To me, I think that that's what he's being judged based off of, not just to go out here, have just play well enough for the team to win. I think they're looking for him to be a force multiplier, to be able to open up Kyle Shanahan's playbook, to have that deep throw, be a consistent threat for the 49ers, which hasn't been the case in these previous seasons. So even if he wins and he just does enough, much like what people looked at Jimmy Garoppolo as, I think that they'll still consider him not living up to expectations. That's the only point I had. But go ahead.
So the only place that I would disagree with you there, Sunil, is when we traded for Jimmy Garoppolo had been, brought of age by Tom Brady. He had been mentored by Bill Belichick. He was the chosen one that they had anointed that was going to replace Tom Brady. There were reports that Bill Belichick even wanted Jimmy Garoppolo instead of Tom Brady because he thought Tom Brady was over the hill. So Jimmy Garoppolo came with instant expectations. He wasn't that young when we got him. He was 27, 20. He was 26 years old, I think, when we traded for him. Mm-hmm. Trey Lance is 20. He's going to be 22 years old when the season starts. That's still going to be younger than some players drafted in this year's draft. That's going to be younger than every other. He was the youngest rookie drafted, I think, last season. So, for people to have that high of expectations on a 21-year-old who's going to be 22 when the season starts, it's unrealistic. I mean, if people have those unrealistic expectations, they might be let down. But if you're a realist and you understand Trey Lance hasn't played in 2 seasons, he's only 22 years old, he has a career of 10 to 15 years ahead of him, probably 12 to 15 years ahead of him. There's going to be so much room for him to improve as he gets older. For him to just go out there, be able to play at the same level of Jimmy Garoppolo, he's going to take the top off the defense more than Jimmy Garoppolo could, just because he has the physical talent that Jimmy Garoppolo didn't have. But I mean, if he goes out there, we're leaning on the run game and we're winning games, I think you're going to see a big shift in the narrative midseason. They're going to say, okay, this kid does have it. He, I just think that we're going to see that change. I mean, because Jimmy Garoppolo has staunch supporters because of that win-loss record. I can't see Trey Lance not having those same type of support, because he's going to have a very similar win-loss record.
Yeah, and I mean, I agree with you in the sense that that should be what the expectations are, but it doesn't seem like that is the case, right? Because they're not talking like there's so many reports, and I haven't necessarily seen this out of any quarterback that I could recall, right? Is so many people being critical of him before he's even been able to be a starter on the team. And it's not stuff like, oh, he's not working hard enough, or he doesn't, he's not, his attributes or his strengths were over exaggerated and things of that nature. It's people already saying that he's not a good enough quarterback to play in the NFL or be a starter for this team. And I don't understand how that could be said. He's already won a game in the NFL, right? As not even being able to be a starter at the full helm. And it was a must-win game. And the offense put up just as many points as the offense was averaging, with with Jimmy Garoppolo as quarterback. So for me, it depends on, I guess, who's setting those expectations. But I agree with you. For him to live up to expectations, the win loss is going to be the most important. But for me personally, I would like to see him be able to score more points, or at least this offense be more of a threat consistently than it has been when Jimmy Garoppolo was the quarterback. And the reason why I say that is the defense had to bail out the 49ers offense quite a few times this season. And especially in the playoffs, Chuy, the fourth quarter of games, and even the second half to an extent, the 49ers offense was very stagnant. I mean, they've scored very few points in the fourth quarter, and this is going back to 2019 as well. And that has been one of the Achilles heels for this team when the games that they've lost is not being able to score in the fourth quarter. I want to see if Trey Lance could fix that. I think his legs can help keep moving the chains where Jimmy didn't have that option as far as that ability as much. So I'm looking for that. I think those are going to be what I'm really looking for. But I'm with you. I don't expect him to be having these Patrick Mahomes-like numbers or Justin Herbert-like numbers. I'm just
Well, I
looking
think
for him
he's
to
a
play
different type
consistent.
of quarterback, and I think that's going to be one of the most interesting things this season, is to actually see what type of quarterback he is. I think by the end of the season, we're going to have a good idea of the type of player Trey Lance is going to be. I don't think he's going to be at his full potential, obviously, and there's going to be so much more improvement that comes, but we're at least going to know generally the type of player that he is. Is he going to be super accurate ever? Does he really have a big rocket arm? Is he a good runner? Can they do design runs, or is it just going to be off of broken plays? Is he going to be more of a rollout quarterback? Like, we're going to find out exactly what type of player he is. And I think after this season, we'll be able to level set and set realistic expectations going forward for him.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Cool. Well, let's move on. So the off season is upon us. A lot of free agents this offseason on our team. Obviously the draft. We should be getting some compensatory picks, and we don't know yet what Jimmy is going to be traded for. But without knowing exactly what our assets are going to be, Chuy, what is or what should be the 49ers' main focus this offseason?
So this is a perfect segue after we're talking about Trey Lance to go into this topic, because the biggest thing that we need to focus on, the biggest area that we need to focus on, the 49ers need to, is protecting Trey Lance. He's the most important asset in the 49ers organization right now. I know Deebo Samuel is probably the best player in the 49ers organization right now, but make no mistake about it, Trey Lance is the most important asset in the 49ers organization right now. So they really need to do everything possible to shore up their offensive line this offseason, rebuild it. I think Trent Williams may be the only player that will return unless Alex Mack gives it, a go for one more season. I think from a starting standpoint, those two may be the only two returning starters on the offensive line.
You
So
think
I think
McGlinchey's gone?
yeah, I don't think he's going to be ready at the beginning of the season. I think he may come back in midseason. I don't think he's going to be ready at the start of the season. We'll see. But I just think McGlinchey has never been a solid pass, blocker. So I don't know that they really want to put Trey Lance's fate into Mike McGlinchey's hands. So to me, that's the most important thing that the 49ers need to focus on is shoring up that offensive line. So that way Trey Lance isn't running for his life next season. He can actually learn how to go through progressions. He can learn how to read defenses, and he can do it comfortably instead of being under constant duress the way Jimmy Garoppolo was this season, really, because it always seemed like Jimmy Garoppolo would drop back and he was in constant duress. He was getting hit as he threw. It's just luckily he had such a fast release that he was able to get the balls off. But I think ultimately that's probably the most important thing we need to focus on.
And, I agree with you. I think that the offensive line is an area that definitely needs to be upgraded, especially in the interior with the right guard, I think is the biggest thing that needs to be upgraded. It's interesting because I thought that Laken Tomlinson was a no-brainer to bring back and re-sign, but it's looking more and more like they're going to let him test free agency. And I think that, he's going to get just too much money on the free agent market where the 49ers aren't going to be able to compete, which I think to this day is going to be a dumb move because of just how well Laken Tomlinson has played for the 49ers. And he's the only offensive lineman that always stays healthy. So how do you think they solve that? And the reason why I asked this question, Chuy, let me preface it by this. 49ers best offensive lineman this season, Trent Williams, obviously, Laken Tomlinson, Alex Mack. None of those guys were drafted by the team. In fact, out of all of the starters, with this offensive line, only McGlinchey is somebody that the team actually drafted and developed themselves. They picked Aaron Banks the second round. You already mentioned earlier in the show. He didn't see much playing time, if any playing time. Jalen Moore, what played in spot duty, was up and down. Tom Compton, a guy that was drafted, previously played, was up and down. This team hasn't had a good track record drafting offensive linemen, meaning picking the right guys. And in previous drafts as well, Chuy, they've identified the wrong guy. So instead of getting Aaron Banks, they could have gotten Creed Humphreys, who had an all-pro type season this year. They passed on that. They took Javon Kinlaw a couple of years ago when Trenton Wirfs was there as an offensive lineman that they could have got. They passed on that. So how confident are you that the 49ers can solve this problem through the draft? Do they have any other options, or do they just have to, swing for the fences again and try to maybe trade for a guy?
Well, based on what you said, Sunil, I'm not confident at all that they can solve it in the draft. I mean, we obviously know their history when it comes to drafting offensive linemen. It's not good. There's no way around it. But I think, it's not a lost cause, but because they've also been able to get players, like you mentioned, like Laken Tomlinson. They were able to get him. I think they've traded a fourth or fifth round pick for Laken Tomlinson, and he was a first round pick, a former first round pick. So I think ultimately that's what the path going forward is. The smartest path for the 49ers is to find a highly talented player that just didn't work out with an organization and then go poach him. They've seemed to have shown that they can have success with that. I mean, Trent Williams is obviously just an all-world talent. He was going to be good no matter where he went. But Laken Tomlinson, Weston Richburg, when we kicked off the Shanahan era, they got him over from the Giants. They brought him over. He fit the scheme. So they don't necessarily have to get the most talented player. They just need to get somebody that's a good scheme fit for the Shanahan offense. And those guys tend to be smaller, more agile. They're not usually the top tier, highest paid offensive linemen. So I think there's some hope on us being able to find that type of player for a good deal, because I just don't have any confidence in their drafting ability for offensive linemen. I mean, maybe Aaron Banks lost some weight and he's going to fit the system a little bit better this season, but am I going to bank on him, especially since he was inactive most of the season? No. So, I mean, they have to do something, but I think the more realistic path is for us to find a cast off from another team.
I agree. So we'll leave on this question because we're already at 45 minutes, Chewy. So this off season, you came on the show and we had a very, I thought a very good, fun debate about what D'Amico Ryans was going to do this upcoming year. You brought up a great stat saying that there's been no first year defensive
You
coordinator.
remember that, huh?
Yeah, absolutely, man. I remember that a lot. That had a team that finished, I think it was top 16 or top 18.
Top 16, top half
Yeah.
of the. So since 2000, no first year defensive coordinator had ever had a defense finish in the top half of the NFL. So
Got you.
16 or
Well,
higher.
things have changed because my guy D'Amico, who I told you was gonna be the one to break this thing, actually ended up. And I think depending on which stat you use and all that kind of stuff, it was somewhere 4 to I think the lowest I saw was like 7 or 8, but definitely top half of the league. So becoming the first guy. So I know it wasn't that you were betting against them. You were just showing that it's a tough thing to do, and obviously
Right,
the
there was going to
stats.
be a learning curve. I thought there was going to be a learning curve, and I think there was early on the season. I mean, if you look at how we started off the season, we didn't start off great. The secondary had issues. They really needed to be coached up on technique and everything based on the scheme that we were playing. So I think there were some growing pains, but the latter part of the season, the defense became so dominant that it really just boosted up the defensive rankings, and it really saved the 49ers season. I mean, make no mistake about it. It wasn't the offense. It wasn't Jimmy Garoppolo. It was Deebo Samuel, and the defense is what saved the 49ers season this past year.
For sure. And with a young quarterback at the helm with Trey Lance, his first full year as a starter, that defense is going to be called on even more, I would expect, to be able to maybe bail out a young quarterback that might be making young quarterback mistakes, right? So what can the 49ers do this season to improve their defense this upcoming season?
That's really hard to say because, I think we all agree the 49ers defense was elite at the end of the season. I mean, in my opinion, they were a top 2 to 3 defense in the whole NFL. So there isn't really a lot of room to improve. I would say their linebackers, they're going to be set this season. They're going to have 2, 3, maybe 3 good linebackers coming back, depending if they get rid of Dre Greenlaw or not. I mean, Al-Shaair was playing at an all-pro level at the beginning of the season until he got injured. The secondary, Ambry Thomas, to me, seemed like he shored up the cornerback position. I would say secondary is still going to be the biggest weakness going into the season. We're going to have to figure out if K'Wan Williams is going to come back, if we're going to need to bring in somebody for that nickel corner spot. Can Diamador Lenore jump in and fill in there? Is he up to that yet? Safety, we might be losing Jaquiski Tart, so we may have to replace him. Is Hufanga good enough to play as a full-time starter? So I'm going to say the secondary, shoring that up, is probably the biggest area of improvement for the defense this year.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's the easiest place to point is the secondary. I mean, especially the corners. That's always going to be the weakest, I guess, part of the 49ers defense, just because they invest so much with their strategy in the defensive line. They obviously have really stud linebackers in the past with Tart and Ward have had some of the most dynamic safeties there as well. So the secondary obviously got the short end of the stick as far as just investment, and so everybody points to them. But I think you're right. I mean, I think Mosley and Thomas are going to be the starters next season, and I think that they're both young, athletic, aggressive type corners.
I think they're good starters, yeah.
Really, yeah, they're good, especially for what the 49ers ask of their corners to do, which is be able to press, be able to play zone, but tackle very well in the run game as well. And I think they're able to do those type of things. I think for me, what I'm looking for is to find somebody else that's going to be the partner of Nick Bosa on the edge. Now, whether or not they do that through the draft this season, or if they bring in somebody, or if they just do the whole depth thing that they did this season and just bring back a lot of low end talent, and I'm putting parentheses or
Cast
quotation
offs,
marks.
right? Cast offs.
Yeah, people that maybe haven't other teams have given up on, but are still the athletes that the 49ers like developing, and then have Coach Rick, coach them up to be guys that could be just part of a deadly lineup rotation for the 49ers. I mean, you saw guys like Jordan Willis, Charles Omenihu, even Ebicom play pretty good ball near the end of the year. And, Willis is somebody who obviously had the suspension, the first half of the season last year. So if we could bring him back for a full year, I think he could be, really, really good player, not only for the defense, but in special teams for the 49ers. But there are some question marks, man. I think for me, I'm really looking for this team to maybe let go of some of these older, oft injured players like a K1, maybe even like a Tart. I'm really high on Tart, but I think he's going to want a bigger payday. And he is somebody who, even though he stayed healthy this last season, does miss quite a few games. So I could see them maybe upgrading through the draft with the slot corner and a safety as well, get younger at those positions. And maybe, Low the Truth brings up, maybe re-sign Verrett for a very cheap deal, maybe move him to the slot or something like that.
I mean, I'd be open to Verrett at a cheap deal, but not counting on him to be any kind of starter. I mean, let him go into camp, and if he can beat out whoever else we bring in, we do not need a bank on Jason Verrett again. It's just not, he's not reliable enough.
Right. I mean, I think the only pinpoint thing that I could say, hey, what is something that this defense got eaten alive with that has cost the team games? And the only thing, because there's only a couple of games that I could think of where the defense really couldn't stop the team, and that caused the team to lose. And that was week 3 against Green Bay when Devontae Adams went off. And then
that was their whole offense that game, was throw it deep, pass interference.
And then the NFC Championship game, Cooper Kupp obviously ran wild against, the 49ers. So maybe if they could just get that, I mean, hopefully Ambry Thomas or Mosley could turn into the type of players that can, stop a receiver like a Kupp or like a Devontae Adams. But it seems like those are the two games that I could think of that was the main reason why the team, lost. So yeah, I guess secondary, would be what would be a good answer as well.
I agree, man.
Cool. Well, guys, I just want to thank everybody in the chat section for joining in with us. Please like and subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. But before you guys go, I also want you guys to go to Chuy's channel. I know, Chuy, you're starting to put up more content on yours. So why don't you take some time to plug your channel to the guys that are still here listening?
Yeah, guys. So during the off season, we're not going to go crazy with it. We'll probably have a show every other week. I am going to have a roundtable rotating on my channel and No Border Sports. So we're going to be rotating a roundtable on all of our channels. So y'all make sure y'all subscribe Chuy and Alejandra on YouTube. And here's my Twitter handle at Chuy_Alejandra. Me and my beautiful wife Alejandra do a together show. So she's real big on the 49ers. I know she gets better reviews than I do. So, I think she's better looking than me, and she has better takes than me. So y'all
definitely better looking. Definitely better looking.
So y'all make sure that y'all give me a follow, subscribe on YouTube. I'd appreciate the support. And y'all do the same for my man Sunil here. He brings it, and he has some of the best content out there on the 49ers.
I appreciate it. And guys, like everybody else, you guys make the show. I love that you guys are so active in the comment section. Thank you so much for doing that. Please stay safe, stay healthy, and always stay hydrated. And we will see you guys very, very soon. Take care, guys.